Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Am I the A-Hole Horror Movie Edition. The way this works is I read the synopsis of a movie told from the perspective of one of the characters. The challenge is to see how fast you know the movie and how fast you know which character is speaking. And if you haven't seen the movie, perhaps this will intrigue you and you'll find something new to check out. This one says, am I the a-hole for wanting to solve a mystery? I, 28-year-old male, teacher, have always wanted to be an author. I have a dream of writing a book about a mystery that happened 70 years ago. In a small town in New Hampshire, the people of the town all walked into the woods one day and all but one of them never returned. I have had to put this dream on the back burner due to my teaching career and because details of the disappearance and the location of the trail have been super hard to find. No one has wanted to talk to me about it. For the longest time, I have had no leads. I searched as much as I could in my spare time and I finally found a town clerk who would talk to me. I met him at his work and he gave me the information that I was looking for. A stack of notes about the town and the disappearance. I finally had enough of a lead to take an expedition to the town and find the trail. Just as I was leaving, the clerk said, "Enjoy your movie." That night, I told my wife, 25 female Megan, and our best friend Kevin that we could finally write our book. We studied the information that I had obtained and we assembled a team.
No room for people who can't act in a team on my team.
There was me and Megan, Hunter with the Forest Service, brother and sisters Norman and Tess, who would be our cartographers, my and Megan's intern Kathy, and Kevin, who would serve as our psychiatrist. The one man who returned after the town walked into the woods had come back not in his right mind, so we decided it was important to have a psychiatrist along. He would check us periodically throughout the journey with a series of questions and commands to be sure we were of sound mind.
Started to think I was going a little woohoo.
When we got to the town, the coordinates for the trail that the clerk gave me led us to a movie theater. There was no sign of a trail. I refused to give up and wandered through the theater thinking about my next move. I sat down in a movie and talked to the girl that was in there. Her name was Taylor. She worked at the movie theater. She said she wasn't angry at us for wanting to walk the road where the people vanished. She said she was jealous. She told me her grandfather was friends with the owner when the whole town disappeared. That's how she got the job at the theater. She showed me some old film reels. The Wizard of Oz was one of them. She said the people who left had been watching the Wizard of Oz when they all got up and walked into the woods. She said the film had been worn down because they watched it so much. She offered to take us to the trailhead if we let her come with us. And that's how we found the trail. The 8 of us walked into the woods. Kevin continued his psychology tests as we went. We had a UTV with us and backpacks. Some of the trail had to be cut away to make room for us, but mostly that first day it was a normal day of hiking. We set up tents for the night and sat by the fire making small talk. Norman jumped out at us from the darkness and scared us. He showed us a hat he had found in the woods. We figured by its condition it wasn't lost 70 years ago, but we decided to keep it as our first significant finding. Norman wanted to wear it. Despite Tess's irritation about him wearing it, I let him keep it. The next day, Megan and Taylor talked while we walked. Taylor said at that time, the world was in chaos and the people used movies to escape, like the Wizard of Oz. She said her grandfather, who worked in the town but hadn't lived there, which is why he didn't disappear with the townsfolk, had tried to solve the mystery of the vanishing. He talked to anyone who would talk. She said the townspeople hadn't taken everything with them, but some of the stuff they took was weird. They took formal wear like suits and hats, plus a phonograph, one that played music when you turned the crank. Megan had recorded this conversation, and when she played it for us, Kevin was skeptical. He said she only said they took the hats because they had found a hat the night before.
Your brain makes associations in a very obvious way.
I wasn't ready to write her off, so I told him to wait until we found more. Tess was still irritated about Norman wearing the hat, but he still wore it constantly. Some of their equipment seemed to be malfunctioning. Kathy showed me the GPS. It said we were in another country. As we continued walking, it kept showing us in different countries. We laughed it off, making a game of which country we were in now. A day or two later, as we sat down for a rest, we heard a strange sound on the wind, kind of like someone blowing into a bottle. We were curious about it, but figured it was just a wind tunnel. Kevin continued his psychological assessments. We were fine. Another day or two later, when the GPS said we were off the coast of Australia, we started to hear music. Old music. Music that sounded like it was being played on an old phonograph.
Old-timey music.
Kevin had theories. Magnetic shifts, other humans messing with us, a collective hallucination, or it was the people who disappeared. I knew though, and Norman's coordinates seemed to confirm it, the music was coming from the end of the trail. Our instruments weren't working, we had found a human bone on the trail, we were hearing 40s music. That night, I presented the group the option to turn around, to abandon our mission. Everyone but Kevin shot down the idea. We discussed what could be at the end of the trail. The people 70 years ago had thought it was their own road to Oz. What if there really was something magical at the end of the trail? Norman pointed out that the wizard had turned out to be a fraud. We asked Kevin what he would ask for from the wizard, and he said his answer was too personal.
I'm gonna be up here.
But he was smiling. We had won him over. I said I just wanted to get whatever was at the end on camera. We came to a fork in the trail. Since our compasses weren't working, we didn't know which way to go, but Norman did. He said all the trails converged into a center point. He and Tess didn't have the exact coordinates yet as they were having to recalibrate their instruments, but it seemed promising that they would figure it out. Kevin did the psychological test on Taylor. She answered the questions right at first, then got frustrated when she struggled to say the alphabet backwards. That night, I wore the hat and used a stick as a cane. I danced to the music in front of the group. I woke up with a start, and Megan told me I was talking in my sleep. I had said something about not going back. The next day, the music was loud, and then it stopped abruptly. During my psychoanalysis with Kevin, I broke down in tears. I missed the music. Kevin said people were losing memory and associations. He was afraid we would be too changed by the time we did go back. Norman found a berry, and Hunter, from the Forest Service, freaked out. It was nightshade, very poisonous. We passed it around so we knew what to look for. We decided to have a party that night. We had brought alcohol with us. The party got a little crazy. That night, Taylor woke us up to tell us she never knew her grandfather. She said she had grown up in the town. She said the people of her town didn't wonder why the people who disappeared walked the trail. They understood. She said it wasn't something someone could write a book about. That morning, the music was back. Kevin confided in me and Megan that during their test this morning, Kathy had said her earliest childhood memory was standing at the trailhead before we started our journey. He wanted us to take the hint and turn around. I said give it one more day. We stopped in a clearing so Norman and Tess could take a measurement. There was still tension between them about the hat.
Will you be wearing that all the time now?
They got into a fight and Tess took the hat off Norman's head. He chased her down and wrestled her to the ground. Then he attacked her. He tore off chunks of her face, then used a rock to sever her leg from her body. Norman then disappeared into the trees. They had been too far away for us to stop them. We could barely even see what had happened. We were freaked out, but we discussed what to do. Our navigators were now both gone. Megan told me to go find Norman. I suggested we just go back and go home. Hunter, with the Forest Service, agreed. He said he could find the way back, and Norman already knew the way back. Megan insisted that we go look for Norman. Kathy covered her ears and screamed for the music to go away. Hunter, with the Forest Service, and I went into the woods to look for Norman. We found him hiding in the trees. He was crying. He said he thought he did something really bad. He refused to come to us, and we tried to coax him out. Hunter, with the Forest Service, said he had felt anger and urges too. I told Norman that we would forgive him. Norman came out and let us tie his hands together and lead him back to the others. We kept him tied up back at the camp and put someone on watch of him at all times. During my watch, I asked Norman about how to get home. He said he was starting to like the music. He said he couldn't get us home. He said the numbers didn't add up when he went anywhere else but forward. He had the numbers mapped to the end of the road. He showed me, but we couldn't follow his numbers home. They didn't work backwards. I hid the coordinates to the end in my jacket, and we began to pack up to go home. The music began skipping and scratching. Then it suddenly became unbearably loud before it faded away. Then a loud ringing noise began to sound that nearly incapacitated us. We struggled down the trail, going backward, but progress was slow due to the horrible noises. We came to a high deadfall of broken branches with a body in front of it. It was Tess. She was hanging on a post like a scarecrow with her arms crossed in front of her, pointing in opposite directions. Norman began to freak out, sobbing with despair. He wrestled away from the group and drove off alone on the UTV. While this was happening, I climbed the deadfall and saw what we had been going for this whole time, and there seemed to be a light at the end of the trail. As soon as I discovered this, the horrible noises stopped. The music came on soft and carnival-like, and we discussed what to do. I said we should go forward, but no one agreed. Kathy insisted that Norman's numbers were right and we just had to follow his numbers home. Megan insisted we all stick together, wanting to leave the trail and hike south toward home. Hunter with the Forest Service wanted to go west through the woods. He grabbed Taylor and wielded a knife. He said he was taking her west with him. Kevin suggested we split up the gear, and Taylor and Hunter with the Forest Service left into the woods. Later that night, a lightning storm broke out and Megan and I made love, overcome with emotion. She begged me to stay with her. The next morning, I snuck out of the tent, but was stopped by a sleepy Megan telling me her dream. She said in the dream we had made it home, but home wasn't there. We were all dead or gone, and the ground was black and the sky full of smoke. She said, what if this road is our home now? When she drifted back to sleep, I left. I climbed the deadfall and headed up the road alone. I had to see this through to the end. I walked, following Norman's forward map and my compass. I didn't bring any food with me, just my one bottle of water. I rationed that and ate bugs, and I kept going. I heard my walkie-talkie beep and I listened. I knew it was Megan on the other end, but all I could hear was static and the music. I told her if it was possible she could hear me, I was lost. I couldn't read the map. I was afraid the trail never ends. I told her I hoped she made it home and that she moved on. I wanted her to be with Kevin. Kevin loved her. I told her to never think about me or where I ended up. I told her I loved her and to go home. I got out the map again and I let it blow away in the wind. Then I followed where it went, crawling as I was too tired to stand. The music crackled and grew loud. I kept going until I reached a building. It was the movie theater. The theater where I met Taylor. An usher came out to talk to me. He told me I no longer needed the others. He said he saw Megan. She had arrived at the end, but that there were numerous ends. He said, enjoy your movie. I walked into the movie and the usher yelled at me to take my seat. On the screen was Megan, strung up on a pole like a scarecrow. She told me we had made it. The ground was black and the sky full of smoke. This was our home. I started to scream. So this movie is called Yellow Brick Road, and the character speaking is Teddy. Yellow Brick Road has been one of my favorite horror movies since I first saw it. The scene of the brother and sister character, Norman and Tess in my story, I think their names are Daryl and Aaron in the movie. The scene of him pulling off her leg just stuck in my brain for so long that I had to watch the movie several times. What the heck was that? This is one of those movies that's very metaphor driven. Like I've always said, I'm not very good with metaphors, and I still to this day don't really understand what this movie is about, but I feel like the story is so compelling that I just love it, and I feel like every time I watch it I start to understand it a little bit more. From what I could find online, because there's not much about it online, it's basically a Lovecraftian story about people losing themselves out in the wilderness, taking inspiration from real life stories like the Donner Party. For me though, it feels more than that. That seems a little bit too simple, and maybe I'm just reading into it a little bit too much. I feel like it touches on that saying, one of the worst things that can happen to you is to lose your heart's desire, and the other worst thing that could happen to you is to gain it. Almost like you can be searching for this one thing your whole life, and once you find it, you lose your purpose, or it turns out to not be as great as you imagined it to be. I think this is a twisted tale of that, as if the thing you most wanted to find actually turned out to be horrible. You can also see it as just a complete horror movie version of The Wizard of Oz, where Wizard of Oz is kind of a horror story anyway, but you think about what's on the trail, the Wicked Witch of the West, the end of the trail, the wizard turns out to be a fraud who can't really do anything. Thankfully, in that story, Dorothy has the good witch who can solve all her problems. In this story, there's nothing at the end of the trail. It's all a fraud, and the only thing you're left with is the evil and the horrors. It's a movie that I think is definitely worth watching at least once. What happens to the other characters besides Teddy once Teddy splits off from the group is really interesting. It is a slow burn. Some people probably would find it a little bit boring, especially in parts, but I've watched it probably 4 times now. I always find it interesting. I always find something new to take from it. And it's one of those stories that's so abstract that I feel like every time I go to watch it, I don't really remember what happened from the time before. I only remember like bits and pieces of the startling imagery. So please, if you haven't and you want a new horror movie to watch, check out Yellow Brick Road. It was released in 2010. So if you're into psychological horror, I think you'll get something out of this one. Anyway, drop a comment down below if you've seen Yellow Brick Road, or if you check it out, tell me what you think. Hit the like button, please subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Until then, thank you for watching. Take care of yourself and drink water. Bye-bye.
Enjoy your picture show, Mr. Barnes.
Subscribe!